Hello, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to join this webinar and this conference. A lot of good speakers, a lot of really good, valuable information coming out. I'm going to give a presentation here that hopefully you get some information out of on integrated habitat management and how we use the technology to advance IVM. My name is Roy Van Houten. I'm currently the Director of Energy at Wetland Studies and Solutions. Background is in wildlife management and habitat management, so this really hits home with this kind of work, and I really love doing it. And I have a really strong background with environmental compliance in relation to environmental permitting with DEQ and Army Corps permitting. The company I work at is Wetland Studies and Solutions. We're part of the Davie tree expert company, and we're based in the mid-Atlantic portion of the United States. We do all environmental consulting and cultural resources, a whole suite of services that take projects from the beginning phases all the way through permit closeout. And then what we're going to talk about in this presentation is and then beyond. So that's kind of what we do here at Wetlands. So in getting started with this project, we were really big on the planning aspect of it. If we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page from the beginning. So we brought the team together at our client's office and really hashed this out on a whiteboard and said, what is winning and what are we going to do to be successful? We wanted to make sure that this plan was in line with what the right-of-way managers, what they had to do to be in compliance in the right-of-way. So that was first and foremost. And being in an environmental field, we were really big on making sure that our baseline data was as accurate as it could be. So we wanted to make sure we had good information to base our plan on to modify over time. I know a lot of you are, dollars are tight, time is money. How can we accomplish multiple objectives while doing what we set out to do and look for opportunities beyond the goals of this project? What can we do with that data afterwards? And we also wanted to make sure we had good monitoring parameters in place during all phases of this project so we can make sure that we're on track and we can hold one another accountable to making sure that this moves forward in a timely fashion. So the main focus of this project to get started was, analyzing these right-of-ways for compliance issues. So we're looking at, thousands of miles and how do you cost effectively do that? So we wanted to start, looking at these right-of-ways and classify them in a grade from 1 through 4. And these terms are what the client based our study on and said, grade 1, basically out of compliance, there's no line of sight, hasn't been maintained in several years. So, really robust job to get the project back into compliance, chainsaws and the like. 2 is kind of brushy, maybe bush hogging, smaller diameter. And then 3 and 4, we're in compliance, and we'll get into them a little bit more. But you have line of sight, and we're in compliance with the regulations. So, looking at the project from the beginning, we're classifying over 1,000 miles, so we have to be efficient. So we're getting kind of that 30,000-foot view. Start using our GIS data to map what are the current conditions of these rights-of-way. So you can see in the photo up top, breaking it down into those grades 1 through 4, like we were talking about earlier. And we also wanted to digitize any kind of access issues or, if there's other encroachments or something else that the right-of-way managers and the field staff could encounter in the field. And then, just kind of a truth check, we sat back down with the team and said, all right, let's go field verify some of the aspects of this project. And the first phase of this project went from Virginia all the way to Louisiana. So we sat down, mapped out some points, and you can see the little yellow dot on the top map. That was a field point that we came up with to say, all right, let's go to this point and let's check each side of here to see if what we did from a GIS perspective was accurate. So the land use identifications, again, we're looking for compliance. We're looking for where we have to focus our time and resources. So these are some of the different land uses that, some would require some aspect of control and some would not. But obviously water, you're not really doing much vegetation management if the pipe is going underneath a pond, a lake, a river, a stream. But there still are compliance issues. So you need to make sure that, flying up to those areas to do their aerial surveys, that they can be seamless in where they're going. So that was one of the unique ones. And there was a lot of other areas where the right-of-ways, it could have been paved over or whatever, road crossings. So we want to identify those. One of the things that, we really didn't think about from the beginning, but as, we started drilling into this and it came to light on the GIS analysis, was the encroachments. How many times are we out working on a right-of-way and there's something impeding access or, egress to getting through the right-of-way? And one of the main ones was fences. This particular project portions ran through Kentucky, big horse country, lots of paddocks, fences. And, but are there gates in these fences? Are there ways that we can safely, access these rights of way for inspection, as well in case if there's an issue, can we get in and out? So, that was kind of a big one. And then it's just amazing the amount of other things that, we found out there and with trailers and swimming pools and, all kinds of stuff that, is really not compatible with being on a right of way. So we wanted to quantify all that as well. So that's great. We're out there, we're collecting all this information, but that information is only as good as its real value is. Can you transfer that information to others? Can you share what you've gleaned through in GIS and these field data to put it in a model that others can look at and relate to and say, all right, now we can see what you're saying, and we agree with you as a right-of-way manager that these issues are important. So we had all these nice pie charts, these nice maps that our client could then share with others within his company, to say, hey, we really need to get some more funding for this area, or this one area where we did have funding for, we should probably reallocate somewhere else because it's not as critical. So that was a good tool that they were able to go back and shift funding around. So that worked really good for the internal management and the budgeting. But it also really worked well for the managers to get some really solid pricing for vendors to actually do the work. They could accurately say, this is what we need you to do on this stretch of right of way. You're going to need hand crews, or you're going to need bush hogs, or whatever equipment you're going to be there. And it took out a lot of the what ifs, so it made the bids a lot tighter because they're comparing apples to apples. And then all the the environmental reporting parts of this with the ESG and identifying areas for IHM. So it was really good, valuable data that was able to be shared out both internally and externally to help increase efficiency and decrease costs. So this is the area that I get excited about, and IVM, Integrated Vegetation Management, that's keeping these rights of way in compliance with the regulations, whether it's gas side with a line of sight, and the compatible vegetations to have in and around the pipe zone, or whether it's electric transmission or distribution, with how tall the woody vegetation could be growing in and under and around the power lines to be safe. So that's IVM, maintaining compliance. We wanted to go a little bit further. We wanted to say, it's great that we're in compliance, but if we're in compliance and all we have underneath is all invasive species, say Phragmites or autumn olive or whatever, we're in compliance, but it's junk, So we wanted to try to do the right thing and say we can turn these right-of-ways into something valuable, take them from a liability to an asset. So we wanted to really start digging into the weeds. So we're looking at controlling some of those invasive and noxious herbaceous plants to encourage invasive species to be there. Ones that are compatible for compliance and also compatible for native ecosystems. So that was pretty important. The other thing we want to look at too is what else can we do to enhance these right-of-ways for wildlife, and nesting boxes and bat boxes and brush piles, et cetera. What else can we do to go to that next level? And we also wanted to show connectivity of the right-of-way to adjacent communities. And when we say the word community, it's not just the plants and the animals that live in and around the right-of-way, but what's outside that? Is it an agricultural area that can really benefit from good pollinator habitat to pollinate their crops? Is there other assets where it's through a residential area to where a hiking trail or something that can be used as an educational component and also a really good positive PR project? So we wanted to look at the right-of-way and beyond. So that's kind of taking it into that IHM, from IVM to habitat management. One of the cool things too is that, we wanted to increase nesting. So for cavity nesting, this was an add-on to one of the projects too, to monitor and see what we can do for birds. So pretty cool product here. You just put it, you have to have a gas marker on there anyway for line of sight for compliance. Why not put a birdhouse on top of it? Very simple concept, but really cool and really productive. So we installed 194 markers in Ohio, and we're going to get ready to do some more for this client in Kentucky, I believe. And then we'll also monitor them over time to have that data to show what we can do positive on these rights of way. So, we're always looking at, these right of ways, and we're hearing a lot about, what can we do to help the monarch butterfly, and there's, so much land out there that's encompassed in these right of ways. And I'm not sure the exact acreage, but I know when you look at the right of ways for gas, electric, and road, and I believe railroad, you're looking at an area the size of the state of Washington. So there's endless opportunities to go beyond compliance. There's so much potential there to manage these right of ways in a way that's good for the wildlife, and over time too can reduce costs. So that's what we wanted to start doing, and that's where we started to get into this pilot project. So this project was in Waynesboro, Virginia, small site. Again, the client wanted to start small, really engaged landowner, so he knew there was going to be some challenges there. So we got brought in as the expert and the consultant for this project. And again, this was an area that was originally based on the GIS land cover through a rating analysis, and we knew that it was, out of compliance, so something drastic had to happen anyway. So the goal, simple: develop and implement an IHM program. And we want to use this data and track it over time to then use it for other additional projects in this area. So to get started, the right-of-way was a mess. It was all invasive species: autumn olive, honeysuckle, just a mess, multiflora. So we had to go in and hand remove, cut, and get rid of all this junk. But first, we wanted to make sure that we were on the actual right-of-way. So we went in and flagged it to make sure that we were only working in the portions of the project area that the client was permitted to work on. They did not own this right away; it was just an easement. The landowner, again, being heavily involved, asked if we could spare any native woody vegetation throughout the corridor, which was all right because there really wasn't much anyway. A couple of eastern red cedars and some locusts, so we were able to, again, work with him and save a couple of those trees for him. And then this is just a picture. You can see the brush to the left and the right is off right away, but that's exactly how it looked when we went in. So it was just really thick, nasty, dense invasives. And you can see on the right, a tree crew chipping the vegetation and removing the brush. So we knew if we just cut these, we're going to have rapid resprout. So we went in, worked again with the landowner, used Vaseline. It's a triclopyr, and hand applied this all to stumps after they were cut. With this product, you have to apply it pretty quickly. So it's actually me on the chainsaw, one of our other guys coming in and applying that. And we did it this way too, because we wanted to make sure there was no risk of drift from the chemical with any kind of spray. So it was very, very central and protected the nearby aquatic resources, which were a couple streams. And again, this was us working with the landowner, the client working with the landowner to help protect what he was valuable to him was the resource there. He had watercress in there and would come there frequently while we were working and pick watercress for, I guess you make salads out of it, but so working with the landowner. What's interesting here that the vegetation was so dense that there was really nothing left within the right of way to stabilize the soil. We had the root mass there from the autumn olive and all the invasives, but once we cut and killed it, that was going to die off too. So we wanted to make sure that we protected the stream banks. So here the guys are putting down some wire matting, which is biodegradable, and that'll help stabilize this area until the native seeds come up through it and grow and stabilize the area. We also put some coconut logs up. If you can see in the far end of the photo, there's kind of a little bit of slope there by the red shed. And there's sheet flow that comes off the road. So we wanted to limit, the potential for erosion. So we installed that. One of the neat things here, we do a lot of no-till drilling when we're reestablishing areas like this. The site wasn't conducive to get a drill in. The streams, cut that access off. So we went ahead and we seeded it, and we just raked the seed in with the autumn olive leaves that are on the site. So there's, a couple inches of leaf litter there. So we use that as our mulch. Normally you'd use a straw product or something alike, but it seemed to work really good. It was an experiment, and fortunately you'll see it worked out well for us. Here's some really good photos of the site, right after clearing and stabilization. We used a native meadow seed mix. So we had 5 different species of grasses and numerous flowers. This was a seed mix that we had already previously had approved by Virginia DEQ for some other projects, and NRCS was on board with it, and so was USDA. So it helped streamline this project. The landowner, again, wanted to make sure that the seed mixes that we recommended were compatible. So we were able to, get on the phone with our friends at the agencies and settle him and put him at ease that the seed mix was a good mix for the right of way. So one of the unique things with this project, again, we wanted to be in compliance, so we removed that brush, but this landowner, again, now he was concerned that there wasn't enough woody vegetation in the area. So he asked us to work with the client to develop a planting plan to restore and maybe plant some compatible trees and shrubs. So we did that. I was really into birds, so he wanted some good bird habitat. So we worked and came up with a number and ended up installing plants that were compatible. So trees were planted no closer than 15 feet from the center of the pipeline, and shrubs were no closer than 10. Again, we'll maintain line of sight over time, and will not creep in on the gas pipe itself. Here's a little aerial view showing this site. You can see our study plots there, 1, 2, and 3. The brown lines going across the right of way were the coconut diversion logs. And then the light blue area are the streams that crossed and then ran down the southern portion of the site. And then there's a list here with all the trees and the bushes that we planted. All right, so we had good baseline data. We want a project that's successful, but how do we determine success, and how do we hold ourselves to some kind of standard? In Virginia, in the Commonwealth here, to close out a project, you need 70% herbaceous coverage. So we want to go a little bit above that. We said, let's shoot for 75 within the first growing season. A lot of times, from a native restoration standpoint, that's kind of high, but we said, let's try it. And then we also wanted to have 75% of our woody stems to be successful. The woodies were planted a little bit late. We were looking at second week in April, so we missed that window a little bit. So we weren't sure if we were going to hit that or not, and we'll show you the results here shortly. So the vegetation monitoring, we set up the monitoring protocol based exactly on what we're required to do from our wetland mitigation standpoint from DEQ and Army Corps regulations. So we put in monitor stations for photos and documentation. We did stem counts, species diversity, and percent coverage. And then the trees and shrubs were monitored individually just to see how they were doing. Some of the maintenance up front, reseeding some areas. We had a really wet spring that year, so we had some runoff issues. So we had to reseed, maybe fixing some of the coconut logs as need be. And this area is a pretty developed area, but this was like the one rural stretch of the road, so there was a lot of litter. So we would pick that up too when we were out there monitoring. The photo shows at 4 months what kind of vegetative cover we were at. So some results. August 5th, 2019. Again, we started this in April 2019. We ended up with 89% herbaceous vegetative cover, so we were ecstatic with that. I don't know if I guess favorable conditions and a little bit of luck, but it came in great. 35% regeneration of invasive species. So, we're still getting invasive. We knew that was going to be a long-term play and control that is ongoing. So, we weren't too upset with that. I was not happy with the 48% woody stem survival, but, that was replanted in fall of 2019. I think this is a pretty cool picture. Again, shows that right away transition over time from April through August. Again, vastly denuded area to a good mix of grasses and wildflowers. There's some black-eyed Susans there, and there's actually a couple sunflowers that I had already seeded out. This seed mix, we had some annuals in it to try to get some color in year one, more from a aesthetic standpoint. Most of the pollinators that we use take 2 to 3 years to establish. Here's some good pictures of what the right-of-way, continued to morph into. Great mix of different wildflowers in there. Bees abound, milkweed, black-eyed Susans, goldenrod. There's all kinds of great plants in there. So, we couldn't be more excited about the results of this project. Swallowtail butterfly is just really good, and the client, the landowner, and our staff are really proud and happy to see what success could look like if we all work together. So June 2020 update, and we'll be headed back out there shortly. June 2021 is only a couple months away. We had great vegetative cover here. I don't think you can get much higher than that, so we're happy with that. We did a small spot spray to show the effectiveness of the chemical by retreating again after year one. Most of the time on this particular client, they wouldn't retreat that quickly, but we showed them that 100% of the vegetation that we did treat then was done. And then 19% of the project there was invasive regeneration, so it still had gone down. So positive notes, and we know that with subsequent treatments we can get that number even lower. One of the other cool things was that we were able to use a scorecard. This one was developed by the Rights of Waves Habitat Working Group, and we used a 2-tiered card to evaluate the vegetation. And we were ecstatic that the scorecard came out with a score of 57. So, this is kind of just a picture where we're at June 2020, and already wildflowers there. We already got pollinators. There's ants, there's wasps, there's bees. Just really, really good vegetation. And to have that rating of that 57 here, you can see on the scorecard, was just astounding. So it was, again, we were able to convey that information to the client. They were able to share it with the folks and staff, which generated more excitement for more projects. So again, showing that we can have a positive impact, and was able to secure more funding for more projects that were currently. So the path to success, we wanted to be successful from the beginning. There's, no opportunity, well, definitely going to fail, but that wasn't an option for us, and what was it? And, I think the big thing too was not only removing those invasive species for compliance, but also the treatment was huge. If we didn't do that treatment, we would have lost a year on it. We reduced potential for stream bank erosion. We were able to engage the landowner, who was then able to engage adjacent landowners to get other people interested and excited about this. Native meadow obviously is a win for everybody. And I think one of the cool things too is that because we have that baseline data, that we can monitor this over time to show that this can be done at scale and have a really positive impact, and be a template for future projects, not only for the client and us, but also for folks like yourselves that are viewing this presentation. So I don't think you can get on the news today or read a paper or social media without something being spoke about green. That green revolution, quote unquote. I mean, it's here, it's gaining momentum, and it's not going anywhere. And then for us, it seems like these right-of-ways are the perfect area to implement projects on to do the right thing and show that the clients can do the right thing with their project, with their property, and it benefits society. You're seeing that's ecological and socioeconomic value to the community. And I think the other big thing is that nobody wants to invest in companies that aren't doing their part. So I think these IHM projects have a really good message that the corporate companies, they can feed out to their staff internally, but also externally to get support for the things that they need to do to make sure that we all have reliable, power sources and, fuel for our cars and stuff like that. So I think it's gaining that, positive public perception. There's a lot of great groups out there, that are helping promote these and do other things to get recognition for the good work that we're doing in the industry. I'd like to leave with this slide and just this comment. If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. And I think this is really true. And I think that's why it's so important from the planning perspective to take the time to plan any project, whether it's IHM, IVM, or anything. If we're all working together, then we can accomplish so much more. We can have such a bigger, grander, positive impact on the ecosystems around us. This is my contact info. Again, my name is Roy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. If you have any questions or comments, there's my email, and we are not back in the office yet, so feel free to reach me on my mobile, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks again. Have a great day. Stay safe.